Good morning, everyone. I'm Polly. This is Patty.
Hey, Polly.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
Going? Yeah, good. We've had a few issues this morning. We actually nearly cancelled this webinar because our fire alarm was going off relentlessly in this building.
Nearly.
Until about 10 minutes ago. So count yourselves lucky to be here. We're lucky to be here. We're happy to be here.
But if fire alarm starts again, excuse us, we might have to push on, or we can re-record that session, but hopefully it won't happen.
Yeah, we've got all the details of everyone who's attended this session, so or who's registered. So if anything does happen that prevents us from moving forward, then we'll have to record it and send it to you later. But it's okay. It's nice to kind of be here, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thanks everyone.
You can see there's a few of you here today, so please do say hello. Let us know who you are, where you're calling in from, and what your role is. Today's session is all about the key drivers of agency profitability, and so we kind of have an expectation that people who would be coming along to this session might be more agency owners or key decision makers in the business, people who kind of have control over the levers that influence profit. Yeah. Do you want to dive into a little bit about what we're going to talk about today?
Sure thing. So if you guys are, before we start, if you guys are new to our webinars, Patty and I, we are part of customer success team. So we deal with lots of business owners, project managers, finance directors, you name it, on a daily basis. And we look at trying to solve their problems creatively. So we've got a lot to share with you today. And as Patty said, this morning's session is all about unpacking some key drivers to agency profitability, according to some leading agencies all over the world. We read an article recently that has been shared by Christian, our head of design. By the way, thanks, Christian. Very useful article on those key drivers. So we wanted to share that with you and look at Streamtime and where Streamtime could help you achieve those and maybe change a few things for the better.
Exactly. And I'll just share this article with everybody now in the chat window. So
nice one. Perfect. So essentially the goal of this morning's session is to share tips, tactics, and techniques that you as agency leaders can put into practice in your own businesses using Streamtime. And obviously Streamtime will help you along the way. So a bit of housekeeping. You've mentioned half of it.
Sorry,
most of it.
I jumped the gun.
That's okay. So feel free to introduce yourself. Don't be shy. And if you've got any questions, please send them through. There is a specific question area where you could send them, and then we will look at them at the end of the session. There's also some other extra reading, not reading, sorry. I just finished my uni class. No, that's different. Extra webinars that you could watch. Some of them about our way of doing things in Streamtime. Why Streamtime is for humans, not robots. Discussion with Andy Wright, our managing director, and his view on managing a business. And another one is on top 3 agency benchmarks. That webinar was run with Nate, our colleague in Dublin, and Peter Zapp. He is the co-founder of Wow Factory. Wow Company. One of the biggest agency benchmarks survey that they're launching every year.
Yeah, they run a survey and publish a report on a benchmark report on the creative industry. They're mainly based in UK and Europe, but we've been speaking a lot with those guys lately, which has been really interesting. And so Peter has some really fantastic insights just into how different agencies are being run, and has some really awesome tips that he can offer there. And he speaks really well as well. So if anything, watch that webinar just to hear him speak, and I'm sure you'll get something from it, as we all did.
Yeah, we're big fans of Peter.
Yeah.
Cool. So should we kick on?
Let's get through it.
Right. So what would be the first key driver of agency profitability that we will be talking about, Patty?
So the first driver that we're going to be talking about today is nurturing repeat customers, making sure that we're looking after the clients that we've worked with before. almost all agencies recommend increasing the amount of repeat business you get versus pitching for new work with clients. And there's a few reasons for this. One is that long-term client relationships result in higher profit for the agency than individual projects. And that's in part due to the actual relationship that you're able to kind of build with them. Ensuring that you've got trust in there means that you allow your agency to charge appropriately for your services as well. Means that there's already a relationship which is kind of supporting this transaction of services. And also helps kind of reduce the cost of, chasing new business.
For sure. And on that note as well, the win rates when bidding for work for existing clients are typically twice as high with the new potential clients as well. So it's just easier to get that business through the doors.
Totally. And in terms of the benchmark, they say about 70% of your annual revenue should be coming from existing clients, or that should be a target that you can aim for in terms of, business that you're farming year over year.
Yeah. Essentially, you just want to change the conversation with your client around from talking about projects to partnerships, essentially. And I believe Andy, our managing director, also had a lot to say on value-based pricing as well. That's an interesting webinar that we can share after the session too. So that talks about changing that conversation and challenging the way things are done in client-agency relationship.
Totally. And I think in this article, they talk about different strategies to incentivize new business retaining customers, but setting up new projects with that. And some techniques that they talk about involve providing bonuses to client teams that can turn one project into a second opportunity before that first project has even been delivered. So searching forward, looking ahead to the next piece of work that might be able to come from this particular client. And that can happen in a really positive way. If anything, it might even show that there's investment from your team and real interest and engagement with what the client is trying to achieve and do. And you could kind of propose any future ideas as an extension of that first initial project. So those are some strategies that they've kind of suggested there.
That's a really good strategy.
Thanks.
So in Streamtime can help you understand how profitable your current clients are. So we're just going to jump into Streamtime and show you how you could use Streamtime reporting to gauge your client profitability and then make that decision whether you want to keep or toss that client. It's easy to say, but at least you would understand as a business owner who is making you more money, essentially. And it's not just about money, but also about that relationship that we just talked about.
Totally. So we've got a report here called Client Profitability. It's a favorite that I'm just going to click here so that I can get to it really quickly. Now, what this list is showing me is a quick summary of lots of jobs, the cost of the jobs, the sell of the jobs, what was actually invoiced, and then the profit margin off these two. Now, it looks like this is picking up some old jobs, so I'm just going to reduce this timeline so that it's skimming a few out, let's say.
For maybe a financial year?
Yeah, since the end of June last year.
Perfect.
We can get a summary of these. Okay, that looks a bit better. Now, over the course of a year, you're going to probably have a really good idea of who your, these clients are, who these customers are that you're working with, on and on. And so all you need to do once you've kind of pulled this report, and I'm filtering by some really simple status here, job status of completed and archived, and then that creation date, just to show all jobs that started after a certain point in time. Now, the only other filter that I might want to add here, so I can see one client at a time, is just the company filter, so that we can kind of just scroll through our most, our biggest clients or our busiest clients, I suppose, and see these. So I know Nike, for example, are a massive client of ours, so I might want to look at the profitability of the jobs we ran with them since June last year and compare this to another company. And at a pretty quick glance, I can see that the profit that we've made off these Nike jobs has been really, really strong, pretty good. And so they're obviously going to appear as a client that I might want to keep, and I might want to compare them to Aesop, for example. who it looks like we ran a couple of projects with, and we've done a bit of work, but we haven't actually got any invoices out and haven't made any money on these yet. So comparatively, maybe that's an indication that they're a bit harder to work with and probably worth letting go.
Yeah, for sure. It's good practice to save those reports as favorites. So maybe for your top 3 clients, your key clients in your business, or just general client profitability report. So just simply create a report and save it as your favorite and rename it the way you want it to be named.
Exactly. And the columns we've got showing there are really simple. It's just total cost, total sell, invoiced amounts, profit margin, and the total profit there too. So quite simple.
Yep.
All right.
Cool.
What's next, Paul?
So what's next? Another driver of agency profitability is reducing project cost overruns. So it's easy to say, but really hard to do. But obviously, reducing project cost overruns directly affects your revenue, the bottom line. So the top performing digital agencies are able to keep average cost overruns below 10%, and the best are below 5%. That's really hard, but there are some tactics that we can talk about today that you could obviously use and implement in your business.
Totally.
So what are the cost overruns on projects, Paddy?
The cost overruns are essentially, it's essentially the amount that you're working over what was quoted, or you're doing over what was quoted.
Yeah.
So, for example, we quoted a job would be sellable for $20,000. Let's say we ended up doing $23,000 worth of sellable work. That's going to have a $3,000 cost overrun.
Yeah.
And so we want to try and keep that down to keep our jobs essentially running to budget. But yeah, that 10% and 5% kind of bracket is on average where you want to keep things. Now, some ways you can kind of work towards doing this is, one strategy is increasing the proportion of retainer work that you're doing.
Yep.
So that doesn't even have to be retainer work. It's more the idea is predictable recurring revenue versus project-based revenue. And that's just dependent on having strong client relationships, which is, linked to that first point that we just said above, having repeat customers that you can trust, and then commit to longer term financial kind of commitments.
Yeah, 100%. And another one is to migrate your project from fixed cost to time and material pricing. Essentially, your team needs to be getting paid for every work that they do. That will reduce reduce the cost overruns in general in your business. So pricing your job based on time and materials is also crucial.
Totally.
Let's take a look at Streamtime, and we can show you where you could understand and gauge your, the overall job profitability and understand the cost overruns as well. So the first thing we're going to show you is the job cost report. That's where you could understand where you've made a mistake, where you've overspent. Job cost report pretty much shows you how you've planned your job, how is it tracking at a glance based on an actual time and expenses used. And if you scroll down, you could understand how the time got tracked and where how much profitable time has been used for this specific job.
Exactly.
Sorry. Cool. So let's take a look at the front, at the first page, and you could see that the invoice amount here, we've invoiced 19,300. However, our budget is 36,600. So either this job is still in progress. It means we've quoted our client a bit more than we've invoiced. So red flag, or you will have to identify what happened there and take a look.
Exactly, yeah. Now, another way you could kind of really easily keep an eye on cost overruns per project is on the job plan itself, right at the top, you've got the job burnup chart.
Yeah.
Now, this is really useful for seeing the comparison of a plan, which is inherently going to be linked to the quote and probably the budget there. So this is the white outline you're seeing in the background. that's a map of your planned hours based on the dates that you've kind of got plugged into Streamtime to deliver those. Now, the blue that you're seeing washed over the top is the actual burn up of time that's being used, the actual costs that are kind of coming in on top of that. And so that simple overlay allows you to see how your costs are running against your planned amounts and your budget, essentially. Down the bottom here, we can see that we started probably heavier and then we've started to level out a bit and come underneath, which is quite good.
Yeah.
But it's really useful for visualizing your data in a few different ways, because you've got the ability to look at used versus planned hours, but also used versus planned dollars and your used cost versus the planned amounts too. So at the end of the day, this is really interesting because we will show you what the budget, where the budget sits at the top, and we'll show you that budget versus the planned amount. And I can actually see here, our budget is a few $1,000s higher above our planned amount. That's the planned sell of all of the hours we've got planned on the job. And I can see here where the total cost of all of that time is currently sitting against that. So knowing that you've got this job burn-up chart to kind of fall back on, and it's most powerful when you do have dates plugged in, because that allows you to see like those hours and those dollars over the timeline of the job, and it's just presented much nicer and much easier. And the easiest way to kind of get those dates in is through the job timeline here itself, to come in, plot out the items or the item and phase dates quite simply, and just making sure they're all on track and knowing that you can easily shift and change those if you need. And if you do that, you'll get a lot more power from this job burn-up chart too.
Yeah. And if you wanted to view at all the jobs that you've got going on in your business and perhaps take a look at the jobs that are over budget, you could run a budget variance report. So I think there's one saved as the favorite, Paddy.
There's a lot of favorites.
There are a lot of favorites.
Budget variance. Here we go. WIP jobs.
On all the WIP jobs. So this way you can take a look at all your jobs that are happening right now and whether they are over budget. So it looks like those jobs are actually the ones that are over budget.
Exactly. I've got a filter on here just showing my budget variance is greater than 0, and that's just showing me things where the used amount of work on the job is greater than what the budget was that we'd set. And I can see these kind of plugged into what was the initial budget and where are we currently sitting. Here I've got my used versus planned hours, and that's giving us a bit more of a visual indication of where this job is sitting in that scheme as well. So knowing that you can kind of fall back on that and see a list of all jobs in the red together can be really useful for you to come back to and then check in on.
Exactly.
Hopefully you don't need to do too much work on that though.
Oh yes, that's true. All right, so another key driver to agencies' profitability that we're going to mention is the importance of keeping your financial disciplines. So one of those will be the importance of auditing your recurring expenses within the business. So it's simple as creating a report and understanding what are the expenses used in a certain period of time, whether there are any duplicate expenses, are those expenses necessary or unnecessary, and understanding the profit that you as a business making at the end. And another way of setting up those financial disciplines is validating and auditing your sell and cost rates. So sell rates are everything that you're selling your team's work for. Cost rates is everything that's that's their cost. That's the cost to your business. So understanding the importance of auditing those two is essential in any business operation.
And it's one thing to audit them, and we recommend auditing, or at least going back to these figures and checking them at least once a year, if not twice. Twice is good and steady, but you don't want to spend too much time going through all of these numbers and making sure they're correct. All it really involves or really needs, particularly with cost rates, is where you can let slip if there are not 100%. Hidden costs, but things that you might forget or just kind of get lost in terms of what's building that figure. And that is wage. It is also, the wage of your team members. It is also the cost and overheads of running the business. And so if you do make, if you do have additional costs that you are kind of investing in the business itself, that you might add throughout the year. It's important to make sure that those are being accounted for in that cost rate too, and that they're not forgotten. And then the final bit is obviously a little bit of profit there too.
Yeah.
Cool.
So should we just jump into Streamtime and look at how to create an expense report?
Yeah.
There is one that I've added to the top of our favorite reports.
Oh, awesome.
So expenses this month, perhaps. It's a good report to have, good favorite report to have. So essentially, just looking at expenses that have been used this month for specific jobs, how much they cost you, and how much you're selling them for. And if you could scroll down to or scroll right, you could take a look at the profit that you're making from those expenses. So it doesn't have to be expenses this month. The only report that will show you how well you're doing, but expenses in financial year or last financial year. So you could set it up by doing the same thing, but just changing the used date logged to a different time frame. There is one report created already.
Date logged, or it's at the top. Okay, cool. So I can say, oh, it's already created?
Yes. So expenses 2018, 2019 financial year.
Organized.
Yeah, you're welcome. So this way, I'm looking at the financial year 2018 and 2019 and all the expenses that we've used, and looking at the bottom line there. That's crucial to understand how much profit you've made and take a look at them, and perhaps you as a team can discuss them internally, and maybe some of them are not necessary anymore, so you don't have to use them anymore.
Awesome. That's great.
Cool.
Now, the next driver of agency profitability that we want to touch on is having a strong sales pipeline. And it's nice that we've been able to make some really big updates to priorities recently to kind of support that as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to run us through what they look like?
Yeah,
Paul?
sure. It's important to understand as an agency owner that you can't just rely on your actual projects. You would need to have a plan B and have some of the projects that are waiting to be signed off, I guess, projects on the pipeline. So managing a pipeline in any business is crucial. So we make it very easy to manage the pipeline in your business for the sales team. So they can use our priority boards to do that.
I can see you've got one set up here already.
Exactly. So this is personally my agency pipeline, so my new business pipeline, and I've created this board based on my statuses that my company works with. So perhaps the first one will be a cold calling. This is my first step. Then initial meeting 10%, which is the probability of this job coming through, this project coming through. Then it's proposal sent, awaiting approval, and won. Obviously, they're completely customizable based on your current process, so you could set it up yourself, and you could see that at a glance, I'm viewing all my jobs in the pipeline that are coming through. It's important to understand how to manage them correctly, and all you need to do is to create a new job and add a budget to that job to then see that figure on, yes, thank you, Patty,
That's all right.
on this priority board. So you add a budget to the job to indicate how much money you're planning to bring to the business, and add a start or due date to this job too by creating just a single item where you could maybe even track time on all the sales work and sales calls that you do. So you as a business owner can take a look at this board and at a glance understand when the jobs are coming through. When do you think those projects will be coming through? And we make it also very easy to look at how much money is sitting there in your pipeline by adding those column totals in the bottom. So all we essentially want to see is the budget totals. So as I said, the budget is your forecast. So essentially what you're planning to bring to the business.
So on a job, you could just plug that in directly here.
Exactly. And really the labels as well, because you just want to understand what this job is. You want to identify that job, so you can exclude that from your profitability reporting, from your WIP reports, but also they just indicate what type of job there is from the priority board itself.
Exactly, yeah. Cool. And so by having those budgets in, I'm able to see the total value of these jobs that might be coming through the business in these columns, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It allows you to have visibility over, whether or not there's enough cash in your pipeline, or, if there's maybe too much, and it allows you to kind of triage the jobs that you may or may not need to focus on or work towards winning.
Yep. So your sales team can work from one board as well, which is a good idea, and they can write notes for themselves too. So if you scroll down a little bit, Patty, you could add a checklist a little task for yourself, for your team, and then you can mark them as complete. So it's just for you to stay on top of what you need to do. And you can move those jobs as they progress. That's the beauty of it. So perhaps this website for the Sydney Uni has progressed to the proposal center. I'm going to send a proposal very soon. So all I need to do is just move that job into a different column and change the labels based on the actual status.
Awesome.
You could flip the card as well. You could take actions from here straight away. Maybe you have to send a quote from here, which is great. That's always good news. You could create it straight from the priority board, so you don't have to navigate from this area of Streamtime and not waste time, essentially.
Awesome.
So that's on new business pipeline. Lastly, no, that's not last. So we have 2 more to go.
2 more points.
And 5 minutes to go. All right. So what is another key driver that we're going to discuss, Patty?
Managing the ratio of your billable versus non-billable time is another one that we can kind of touch on. And that's just making sure that you're aware of where you're spending your time and asking the right questions in terms of, are we spending too much time on non-billable work, and how much could your team be selling their work for? And, that's opportunity cost there in terms of the work that you're kind of doing for the business, but also losing in terms of time that's potentially sellable to clients as well.
Exactly.
And how we can kind of look at that in Streamtime, it's really easy to kind of distinguish between billable work and non-billable work, because we will manage that at the job level is kind of the best place to manage that. And by that, we mean you can easily just set up jobs with labels that are non-billable. Now, these are internal projects. Even if you do work on jobs that are, discounted, or you're doing, pro bono work, you can use labels here to indicate those as well. But non-billable at the job level will allow you to just strip those jobs apart and easily compare them again. So looking at the time here is my non-billable time is taking me to our time list. We're able to see a report here of all time spent on jobs that contain a label that is either internal or non-billable.
Exactly.
And I can scroll down this list, and this looks like it's all jobs for, since forever. So there's quite a few hours on here. But what we're able to see as well is the cost of that time based on the rates that we've got set up on the team members who worked these hours, and the potential sellable amount of that time based on either the billable rates of the team members or the billable amount of the work that they were actually doing.
Exactly. So that's a good indication on how much you could be selling their work for as well.
Exactly.
What I like doing, I like grouping this report by an item name, and then you could see what's your most expensive item, essentially. So is that ascending? No, descending.
Descending. Looks like holidays are our most expensive.
Holidays is the most expensive item. That's normal. And then some of the design work for some of the non-billable jobs. So it's just good to set yourself up for success and create those reports in advance. It works the same way for billable time too. So you could have 2 reports for non-billable and billable, so you can then compare easily.
And the easiest way to do that is literally by reversing those job labels to say they either contain these or they do not. And so I've just reversed those, and we're able to see what the other side of that coin looks like here. And as we can see, there's a fair bit more in our billable work. So by simply comparing those numbers, you're able to get a quick glance at what that ratio looks like. Now, what's the final point we're going to talk through today, Polly? We've hit 11 o'clock, so we might go 1 or 2 minutes over, but I think we can do it.
Yeah, well, the final point, that's something that goes close to our hearts, especially my heart, is the, and obviously Patty's heart too. Value your people and your culture. So there are many benefits from doing that in any agencies, but one of them, it actually brings higher profitability in your business. So it's
Proven.
100%. So happier people are more productive and effective. We know that. Also, happier people, they will stay in your business for longer. So that means you don't have to spend money on hiring new people, training them, so your turnover is very low. What else?
Well, at the end of the day, I guess, people are the people actually running these projects, and making sure that they're happy and they're healthy in what they need to do means they're going to be in the best possible position to kind of deliver those projects effectively and on time. And if there are issues, if they're, healthy and happy, then they'll be more fit to kind of communicate if things are going wrong, because there's going to be stronger degrees of trust in there as well. And in terms of achieving trust, there are a few kind of things that you can do, which, we do touch on in the webinar that I've posted there. It's Streamtime for Humans, Not Robots, relating to communication, being open and transparent, trying to ensure, autonomy amongst your team members as well, allowing them to kind of own what they do and, not feel like monkeys, not feel like
robots.
Exactly. So, is there anything else you want to add to that point, Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that if you are transparent with your team, you share some of the good parts of the business, some of the bad parts as well. But it's not a bad thing. So your team, as they work together on this, they want to grow your business with you. They want to have your business successful. So it's all part of just looking after them and keeping that culture going. And it doesn't just start tomorrow. We can't tell you what to do around the culture and how to change that and how to look after your people. However, as Patty mentioned, it's a good idea to watch our webinar with Andy, our managing director, who's got heaps of experience running different types of teams and different businesses. And the webinar, that's Streamtime for Humans, why Streamtime for Humans, not robots. It's a good example of what we do here in Streamtime and what Andy's done in the past. So if you wanted to spend another half an hour watching and listening to us. That's pretty much it, Patty. What do you think?
That's a wrap. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm really glad that we made it through this webinar without the fire alarm coming back on, because
we're so lucky.
Yeah, honestly, it was going for an hour before we started. So we're very, very lucky that didn't happen. But thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully you all had something that you could take away from this. Again, that article is sitting there along with those two webinars that I'd recommend you watch both of them when you find the time. But, they're online, so you can get to those whenever you have the time. And again, this webinar will actually be going online as well. And so you can come back to this later if you would like to watch it or share it with anyone else as well. So thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to follow us up later.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.